going to level with you, Molly. Opioids have a 97% relapse rate. You have gone through this 15 times. Do you know what an opiate antagonist is?
No.
It's a shot we give you once a month. The shot essentially makes you immune to getting high.
Is it safe?
Are you kidding me? Now all of a sudden your body's a temple?
You have to be clean for at least a week.
4 more days, seriously?
Tired of what we've been through. I'm scared for you whenever she's around.
Who was that? If I wasn't a junkie, would you even ask?
Probably not. Whenever I've decided to re-engage with her, I've always done it with my eyes wide open.
So you feel like you've run out of hope.
Please, I can't do this.
Yes, you can.
You wanna give up the fight.
Mom, how is she? She sits around smoking, twitching, and I am there watching her like a hawk and pretending that I'm not. Almost one day down. 3 more to go.
When you think it's the end of the road.
I'm so sorry. Wish I'd been around.
You should have been.
You think it's my fault that you're an addict? Oh my God. It just goes on and on.
I am
and
so
on.
sorry that my drug addiction is so incredibly difficult on you.
Sometimes I get the feeling that I don't want to love her anymore.
When you think it's the end of the road.
Do you know how many times that I have told myself that I'm not gonna steal to get high?
Someday I want things to be easier for her.
That I'm not gonna lose custody of my children to get high.
When you think that the mountain's too high.
Oh, please make it stop.
What does it take to get seen?
And you'll never get through.
I'm so sorry, Mom.
If there's anyone who has the strength to break free of this, it's you. I really believe that. I'm proud of you.
Somehow you do.
Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV, everyone. My name's Joe Vanourney. 4 Good Days is a movie based off of a 2016 Washington Post article written by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Eli Saslow. It details the struggles of heroin addiction, and more importantly, it's about the relationship that is about to break between a mother and a daughter, and the mother's last-ditch effort to save her daughter's life. Eli's with us today. Eli Saslow, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much
Good.
for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. I was wondering if you could talk about the seeds of the article. When did the idea come from, and how did that idea lead you to Michigan, where you would end up meeting Amanda and Libby, and then what about them
Sure.
was inspired you to focus the article on their relationship?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so in my work as a journalist for the Washington Post, I write big stories about kind of the main issues impacting the country, and unfortunately, that's meant I've written a lot about opioid addiction over the last 5, 6, 7 years, when it's become just such a frankly, pandemic scourge in the country. I mean, right now we have about 140 people dying every day from opioid overdoses, and we've broken the annual record year after year after year. The average life expectancy in the country has gone down because of it. So I'd written a lot of manifestations of what that experience of addiction was like. But I became really curious about a new drug at that point, a drug called Vivitrol, which sort of it's an opioid antagonist. It essentially blocks somebody's ability to feel high. And this drug is used sort of as a way to enable somebody with some time to then use all the other tools of recovery so that they can maybe break out of this addiction. So I started looking for somebody who was going to just start trying this drug to see, can I possibly get this drug and then maybe break free of this heroin addiction. And through that process, I talked to doctors, went and visited various rehab clinics, and also joined all these Facebook groups where addicts were talking about, trying to get on this drug Vivitrol. in one of those Facebook groups, I found Amanda, who at that point had been, an active heroin addict for 10 years. The average heroin addict in active addiction lives for 11 years. She was running out of time. She'd blown through the veins in most of her body, and was looking for one last chance potentially to break free of this thing. In order to get the drug Vivitrol and for it not to be dangerous for you, you have to be clean for a week before you can get on that drug. Otherwise, it can cause a really bad reaction. So I thought, if I can be with Amanda during this week where she's trying to stay clean, there's a lot of natural tension in that. I knew she was going to be with her mother, and they were going to be experiencing this together. And so I did what I always then do as a journalist, which is get on a plane and go and sort of embed into people's lives. Amanda and her mother, Libby, said, "Yeah, you can come and you can watch us go through this." And the next week was a fairly agonizing week for both of them.
What's your process in getting people to let you into their lives? I would think that going through heroin addiction and exposing that secret to the world, not just people. I'm sure people in my circle might know, and family members. It's hard to keep that a secret for 10 years. So there's probably people that knew, but now they're going to open their lives and everybody's going to know what's going on. And they don't know you. You're a stranger. You're coming in. They I'm going to follow you around. How do you get them to trust you?
It seems crazy, right? And often that's what I think every time that I start on a new story, like how, as a journalist, first of all, it's worth clarifying that, like, as a journalist, I never pay anybody to write about them. They don't have control over what I write. They don't even get to see it until it's published to the wider world, because if I was to give them the story before it was published to the world, it would kind of enable them to feel like they were the editors of their own story, and none of us are the most fair and honest editors of our own stories. So really all I'm offering people is I'm saying to them, hey, I think what you're going through really matters. I think a lot of other addicts are in the same situation. This is a really stigmatized disease in this country, and maybe if some people can understand a little bit better what it's like to be you for this week and to have gone through this for 10 years and to be trying to break free of it, and all of like the pain and the work and the hardship that goes into that, maybe they'll understand this issue a little bit better. And maybe when they think and talk about addiction, they'll do it with a little bit more empathy or compassion. And instead of thinking about, just an addict, they'll be thinking about you and what your life has been like and what you're going through. That's it. That's all I can offer, is saying, I think this is important. I think people should care. And luckily for me, in the case of Libby and Amanda, they also felt like it was really important. And certainly, like her mother, Libby felt infuriated by the way that society was often turning a blind eye on this epidemic that so many people were going through. So I think that's why they said yes, because their hope was maybe this can change a few people's minds. Maybe people will start to see addiction just a little bit differently.
How much time total did you end up spending with them? Was it just
that
week, or was there a
lot
longer?
On that trip, I think I made 2 trips. I think it was probably a total of 10 days that I was with Libby and Amanda. And then I went back with the director for the movie, Rodrigo, and I went back to spend time with them as we were researching for the screenplay too. So yeah, it was, and that's for my journalism. I'd say for if I'm doing a book project, obviously I'm spending time with people for longer. But for stories that I do for the Post, which are these longer pieces, I'm usually spending a week, 10 days with people, and then a few weeks writing, researching, doing other parts of the project, so that I'm writing like one of these longer pieces every month or 6 weeks.
So for those watching, if you haven't read this article, it's called "How's Amanda?" It's available. You can find it on Google if you do a search for it. I highly recommend it. It is a great piece of writing, and you really get inside that world. And so if you're interested in if you see the film and you want to read more about it, I highly recommend Googling that article. So the article comes out, has a big impact. It's well received. How long after that article was published did Rodrigo approach you initially? Is that what happened?
Yeah, exactly.
How long after that did he come and say, hey, I think this would make a good film?
It was fairly instantaneous. I mean, I would guess within the first week that it was published, Rodrigo, who I didn't know before, reached out and we started having conversations. I mean, I think he was he immediately gravitated toward the mother-daughter dynamics in the story, and also to the ticking clock, this sense that like a deadline was coming and she had to stay clean for this amount of time in order to get this shot. So within that first week, Rodrigo and I started having conversations, and then probably two months after the story ran, he and I went back together to spend time with Libby and Amanda, and rode around together with them through the neighborhoods where Amanda had often gone to get high, and just sort of got a very firsthand tour of that experience. And again, I think for Libby and Amanda, especially for after seeing like the initial reaction to the story, where they were hearing from lawmakers or people, with some degree of compassion, I think that they felt like the more people maybe who can hear the story, the better. So they were very welcoming to having us come back.
So I spoke to them a few days ago and got their
great.
side,
So glad.
got their side of that meeting, where they were told like, hey, we're going to turn your story into a film.
Right.
Has that ever happened to you before, where somebody's turned your work into a film?
Yeah, I've had projects optioned before, for TV or for film, but this is the most active I've participated in them. I mean, often it's being optioned and I might consult or I might help in some way, but being involved in like the script writing process and writing with Rodrigo and things like that, this was a first time. And I think for Libby and Amanda, better because you just talked to them about it. But I think probably a strange and emotionally overwhelming and just weird experience, right? Because it's also, and frankly, this was one of the delights, but also the weirdnesses of turning the story into a script, is that you're taking, you're fictionalizing elements of a story, which as a journalist is like.
That's what I was going to ask you. So you're a journalist. Your job is to be accurate, to tell the facts.
Totally.
And now you're the co-writer. You and Rodrigo collaborate on the screenplay, and you have to. The structure of the movies, it's the article. Like you watch the movie, it's the article. There's nothing changed with the structure of it.
Yeah.
There's conversations, I'm sure, like dialogue that probably didn't happen. Dialogues probably changed for dramatic effect. As a journalist and somebody who strives to be accurate and tell the truth and be honest, what was that process like? Changing conversations? And
so strange, right? Because usually that's like that would get me fired. I mean, the only reason I still have a job as a journalist and as a nonfiction writer is because of the credibility of every quote, every fact being like nailed down and ironclad and true. So it was, but in some ways it was also so freeing, right? Like because usually as a journalist, I'm also looking at, here are the elements that I have for the story. Here are the things I've seen. Like I have to, you're sort of like a chef. You've already been given the ingredients, and it's like, make the best possible thing out of what you have. And as a screenwriter, in a way that can be freeing, but also, you don't like some of these ingredients, just invent some other ingredients and bring them in. And it's suddenly there's no more roof over your head. You can kind of imagine your way into improving stories in various ways. And that was, I love that. And it was really interesting and a great like creative process for me. And also Rodrigo has a lot of experience writing, and we had a lot of fun bouncing it back and forth. And I think the script certainly benefited from the fact that it was very much based in a real world experience, and also my firsthand knowledge of that real world experience. But mostly I had to, now when I do journalism, I have to make very sure I don't bring any of that script writing process back into the journalism, because that would be a problem.
Now that the film's completed, you've seen it, you've experienced the process of getting a film made. What's your take on it? How was the experience?
Wonderful in a lot of ways. I mean, it's so, I'd say the biggest difference from my normal work is that it is an insanely collaborative industry, right? In order to make a movie happen, it requires so many people and so many different elements. And there's magic in that, obviously, a line of dialogue when Glenn Close is acting it is much better than it is when it's just like flat on the page. But it also means like control is more diffuse, and it's just a very interesting sort of creative process. Usually when I write something that just runs as a story like the one on Libby and Amanda or a book or whatever it is, you know, what I write is the thing that people read, right? And I can feel like the things that work about it are mine, and it's sort of, it's a more absolute individual process, and there are things I like about that, but I loved the collaboration that's required really to make a movie happen with producers, with directors, and also with actors. Like I learned so much from all of those different people in terms of what they bring into the work.
Well, the film is called 4 Good Days, stars Glenn Close and Mila Kunis, and it's available in theaters now. Eli, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thanks, Joe.
Have a
Appreciate
great
you.
day.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.